First of all, thank you very much to Irene and all the team to invite to be here today to present PLOCAN, the oceanic platform of the Canary Island, and all the work that we have done in relation with multi-use offshore platforms. So today the presentation is going to be structured in two blocks. The first one I'm going to present what we have done in relation with multi-use offshore platforms here in Spain, Canary Island. Then, in the second part, what I'm going to show is the lesson learned. I'm going to ask later on to my colleague Silvia Martin to help me on that part. We are going to present in that part what is the barrier and how we have been overcoming these barriers. But first, I would like to show a little bit about PLOCAN, our oceanic platform that have a test site in the of 23 square kilometers. In the center of this space, we have an offshore platform, and in this area we are testing several devices. So in here we have the location, we have in the bottom part some of the experiments that we already have done. For example, this was the allocation of the offshore wind mill. Also we have here our base inland and some of the infrastructures that we have our workshops in relation with underwater robotics. In the second slide, I'm going to show first the environment in where we develop our activity. It's quite important the environment where we have the port activities. This port in the Canary Island is the base for the oil rigs that are operating in the North Africa. Also in this port we have agriculture, fisheries and traditional activities in relation with nautical and desalination process. So this infrastructure and the value chain associated to these cluster, to this hub, maritime cluster, is quite important because provide the skills and the capacities and technologies that later on we are going to need in the development of the new economy offshore. The next, in the first slide, we can see our test site. This test site is an area of 23 square kilometers. In this area, we already have two cables of 5 megawatts, one connected to the platform and the other one connected to the offshore windmill. This area, we have very good knowledge of the bathymetry, of the biology, so we have carried out sedimentography studies in order to have a very well known area. Also in the coast we have desalination plants and a substation that we use to introduce the energy in the grid. So in here you see a much closer look of this area. As you see, the space is very nearby of the coast and very well connected with the port. Further south of the site, we have our base in the port of Taliarte, and further south we have a commercial port, the Arinaga port, that is also an industrial area in which we can develop all the activities related with the industrial activities. In the presentation we can see, for example, what we already have down there in relation with the building of the concrete mastile for the offshore windmill. This area is quite important in order to connect the industrial capacities with the offshore wind developments that we are going to do. So this whole environment is the area that we are operating. The port of Las Palmas, our test sites, the harbor and the workshops in Taliarte, and the port of Arinaga in the industrial area. So the main infrastructure is of course the offshore platform. In here you can have close look of that. is 30 by 30. It's the platform is 34,000 tons. Is a gravity base deployed in 30 meters and have 7 floors. We have something like 2,000 square meters of space for labs, workshops, and a space for different kind of activities. In this area also we have been developing several projects, as you already know. Mainly we are interested in offshore wind, especially floating one, because the characteristics here in the Canary Island, we have a strong source of offshore wind very near shore, and for us it's important to attract all the technologies associated with that. So we are already implementing an European project called PLOCAN. We are the leaders of that project, but also we have been testing other developments and technologies, like for example WIP10 plus, when wind 2 power has been testing 125 prototype. Also PLOCAN from the last 2 years has been testing these telescopic device using a concrete mast and a 5 megawatt machine very nearby of our offshore platform. And also pivot buoy is going to test a new design, very innovative and disruptive technology using floating device that you can see. Also we have been involved in many issues, in many projects in relation with multi-use offshore platforms. In 2012 we have been leading Tropos. That was one of the main projects in relation with multi-use offshore technologies, together with H2 Ocean and Mermaids. Also we have been working in lean wind, that was studying all the offshore value, trying to lean the offshore value of the offshore windmills. And also we have been involved in entropy, that was also focused in multi-use offshore platforms, but using higher TRLs, while Tropos was mainly focused to developments until TRL 4. In here we are starting TRL 6, and we were looking for the business model of different prototypes of that. Now we are also involved in Musica, that is also another multi-use approach in which we can try to integrate the harnessing of aquaculture, offshore wind, and also producing water that is connected to the land. So this project is especially focused on the islands, and one of the main activities and the main target is Mediterranean islands. We already have been testing several devices for marine energies, especially wave energies of different technologies and different concepts, and especially the fact that our port is very deep is because it is required by offshore oil rigs. That's also help for testing devices in marine energy in the port first, and then later on in our test site. So also in our workshops we have underwater capacities, robotics, especially in relation with sensoring, and also in trying to look to observation of environmental variables. Later on we are going to go in much more detail in relation with that. In relation with observation, we have been working especially on integrating different kind of devices, and also in trying to characterize the baseline, the background of the area in which we have been working, and in the area around Canary Island, where we try to have reference in order to understand if the developments that we are going to do are going to produce any impact or not. In here, I have to say that it's quite important to have baselines before starting anything. These are our workshops and installation facilities in land, where we have we are nearby of the harbor of Talearte, and we have all kind of facilities, also including space for enterprises that could be hub in our facilities. In this second part, I would like to invite to Silvia Martin, my colleague. She has been working closely with us, especially in the projects related with the lesson learned. So that is why I invite her here to be here with you, and she's going to introduce the main barriers that we have been focusing, and later on I will comment a little bit how we have overcome these barriers.
First of all, hello to everyone. I would like to introduce, under a political and regulatory point of view, which is one of the main barriers that we have encountered. And this is the administrative hurdles and the long permitting procedures.
Yes, indeed, this was the main barrier that we have to face. At the very beginning, we tried to get the permissions for consenting, authorization of all the activities related with the offshore, the installation of the place, the consenting for building the offshore infrastructure and so on. So in Spain, we face something like procedures in 16 different entities, governmental bodies, some of them in serial, not in parallel. So that was really a headache, and we have spent almost 4 years on that, almost the double of the time that we required to build the offshore platform. So my recommendation here is just start from the very beginning to work with the civil servants, with the administration, in order to understand clearly what is the procedures that you have to follow, and if you can, just have a single shop in which the administration can solve all the permits and consenting. That will be really the way to proceed, because the enterprises cannot deal with several years of permits and consenting.
Let's move to the economic factors. Regarding these economic factors, one of the main barriers that we have encountered is the limited sources of funding for these early stages of TRLs, or technology readiness levels.
Yes, that was a main issue, especially when the technologies were in TRL 4, 5, 6, still far from the market. The enterprises sometimes are not interested or not committed to support experiments in order to test the devices or technologies or concepts on that phase. So you need a special funding scheme to do that. In our case, we got the support of our regional council. We have a public body but that is supporting early stage of funding for innovation, and we got support from PLOCAN. We got also support from other sources that we are going to see it in the next slide, please. And that is quite important. The enterprises need support to do their experiment in the sea. That is quite expensive. Sometimes, most of the time, the result of the experiment is that something failed and you have to rebuild the system. So the enterprises need support to pass this valley of death. Otherwise, without support on that, it's quite difficult to arrive to the commercial phase. Another important policy that perhaps you can work on that, and is also a recommendation in our case, has been working very well, is the tax relief. So in the Canary Island case, when you do some kind of R&D activities or innovation activities, you can have tax release almost 45%. This percentage is much higher than in the rest of the Spain, and in that way we have been attracting companies to test in our place, because they can also fund their activity using these tax reliefs. In your case, I don't know how it's going to work, but that will be a very important support for the companies in order to look for fresh money to support the testing in the sea.
Okay, still relying on the economic factors, another main barrier that we have faced is not to have a developed supply chain and value chain, because this may cause some bottlenecks, and this will lead to the undesirable delays in our projects.
Yes, I think that in our case we have been working from the very beginning with the maritime cluster in order to understand who is who, what companies, even the ones that are doing business in traditional maritime economy, how they could produce value, or what their activities that they are doing also could support the new economy that we are trying to develop offshore, in relation with aquaculture, in relation with offshore wind, or in relation with multi-use offshore platforms. So the involvement of all the stakeholders and mapping these stakeholder structure, I think that is essential from the very beginning, and also the dialogues, the interactions that you can do with these with those companies is quite important, because they are also also a source of innovation in those dialogues with the companies. So my recommendation here will be work together closely from the very beginning with the maritime cluster or whatever organization you can have around the maritime sector, and also try to enhance the dialogues with them in order to look for common interests and synergies in the activity that you are going to develop.
Now we move to the social factors, and under a societal point of view, one of the main barriers that we need to overcome are the conflicts with other ocean management goals, as the marine or maritime routes and the fishing.
Yes, yes. That has been also an issue here for us. I think the traditional communities that use the ocean, sometimes you have to approach them in order to work together and introduce new activities, because otherwise you can have a source of conflict. In particular, in relation with the fishermen, we have been working with them from the very beginning in order to show them what we are going to do, how we are going to work with them. We have allowed them from the very beginning to do fishing inside of our test site. Also, we have been working with them in new projects in order to improve the value of the fish that they produce in our test site with innovation, with new projects, and also to show them what kind of innovation they have to introduce in order to make compatible the traditional activities that they have been doing with the new activities that we plan to do. I think that this kind of interaction is also essential, and if you develop those dialogues from the very beginning, you avoid also problems later on. I have to say that it's not easy, but if you have a committed group of people on that, it can be done and it's feasible. We already have involved fishermen in several projects in order that they can also have some kind of income. In some cases, we are also down some compensation, but also in a fair approach. So I think that these you have to get the fishermen and other traditional users of the sea on board from the very beginning. That's my recommendation.
Again, under social factors, one barrier that we can also have in mind, or may have in mind, is that the lack of specialized workers or workforce, because maybe they cannot adapt themselves as quick as necessary to these new technologies or novel technologies.
Yeah, I think that here also it's quite important to invest in training and traditional enterprises in order that their skill for their workforce could be skilled in new capacities, and also in order to show them what is the new kind of jobs that you are going to create, what is the needs of that jobs, what are the competencies of that jobs. So what we have done is working very closely from the very beginning with the university, with the maritime cluster, and with the administration in order to support with public money this training work. And in that way also we use this training to introduce in traditional companies this new vision of what can be done in the offshore economies and the opportunities that are on that. So I think that this is my recommendation again will be working together in order to focus these new opportunities and to train the youngers on that.
Another great challenge is to get the social acceptance of these novel technologies, and this is also a big barrier.
Yeah, you need the social acceptance. We need from the very beginning the support of our citizens. So what we have done is just our test site has been built just in front of the city in such a way that the common citizens can see what we are doing. The highway is very nearby, so every day that they go through that, they can see what the activities that we are doing. We are not hiding anything. We are trying to do a lot of transparency on what we do. We have been showing what we have done in the news. We are trying to involve here the media. Also, we have been trying to involve the college, the schools, showing what future we are trying to build, how this is going to impact and benefit them. I think that we have to explain a lot and convince them that the visual impacts that we are going to produce are fully compensated by other benefits in relation with having much more cleaner energy, security in foods, and also creation of new jobs, qualified jobs using our untapped offshore resources. I think that all the work that you can do on that is going to be little, and you are going to also have strong alliances with media and with the communication groups in order to try to go through the public, because it's not easy to get their attention.
Now we are on the technological part, the technological factors, and where we have encountered or found some barriers. I think that the most important part here and the biggest barrier is to get the technology from the early stages, as Joaquin said before, to become bankable. That's the main barrier, and that's in the way we should work.
Yeah. I think that in the technology, have to be reliable, have to be feasible from the technological point of view, have to be viable from the environmental point of view and so on, but have to be bankable at the end. So there is a problem always with the cost, so we have been always trying to attract international competitors, companies that are also competing. So we have offered the singularities that we have in our islands, in relation with the resources that we have, in relation with the energy model that we already have, but we also try to get some kind of competition between different companies with different technological developers. So it's important for us that this competition produce an acceleration of the process. And also we have a lot of international connection because of that. So I think that my advice in here will be try to attract as much as companies and competitors and research groups, and try to create some kind of competition in order that the technologies should be fit to your case, and also to try to improve and to develop in order to have advantages at your place.
And now, last but not least, we are going to focus in the environmental factors. We think that the main barrier that we need to avoid is the negative environmental impact on the ecosystem where you're working or where you are developing your infrastructures. And the one produced when installing the technology, the multi-use platform or the offshore windmill in its installation, during its operation, and also on its decommissioning. The whole life cycle should be taken into account.
Yeah, that is always a main barrier. So in our case, our approach was have a long base ground study, doing a lot of measurements about the environmental status or the ecological status. Also, we have several studies in the open waters in order to have a baseline before doing anything. So over this baseline, we have been following whatever the evolution of several environmental parameters, always trying to show to the public and to release the information and to provide data. I think that the main problem that you can face is the doubt about precautionary principles or things like that. But if you have the data of what is the situation, the status of the ecosystems before before any action is down, and then you keep track of these environmental variables, you can show what the real evolution is, and you can also avoid the risk of problems and delays because environmental questions. In our case, in some cases, for example, we have even documented the positive effect of artificial reef when we develop some of the infrastructures. So my advice in here, our experience is that having this background of observation, you can be saved and you can be sure that you are going to not have problems with this topic. Okay, so it was a pity that we couldn't travel this time, but definitely we are very much interested in follow up what you're doing. So we are open to share all the knowledge and all the experience that we are collecting. Also in the other way around, we would like to exchange synergies with you, and we are also hoping and looking forward to see you soon and to stay and to share with you our experience. So, Silvia?
Exactly. Thank you very much, and looking forward to collaborating with you. Thank you.
Okay, take care.